And hello, everyone. I'm David DeGuzman. Welcome inside the NBC4 Digital Center for this edition of NBC4 Sports Extra. Hard to believe, but 30 years ago, the world had its eyes fixed on Atlanta, Georgia for the Centennial Olympic Games in 1996. 17 great days of sporting action, along with a dark day in Olympic history when a pipe bomb exploded in Centennial Park on July 27th, 1996. One Ohio State PR representative, we call him a sports information director, also known as an associate athletic director for communications. No matter what his title is, his name is Dan Wallenberg, and he had the chance to volunteer at the Atlanta 1996 Games. He took advantage of that opportunity, serving as a volunteer in the media center for field hockey, a sport that, as you'll learn, he didn't really have much experience with. But Dan was early in his college athletics career, working on the PR side of things, took advantage of this opportunity and learned a lot. Now, I caught up with him at the home of Ohio State rowing, that is Griggs Reservoir Boathouse here in Columbus. Rowing is one of the sports that Dan deals with here at Ohio State. And we met in front of a wall that had the Olympic rings, and we wanted to take a trip down memory lane, reminiscing on some of the memories he had as a volunteer for the Atlanta 1996 Games, how it shaped his career, and also some of the favorite stories he had from those games. So on this edition of NBC4 Sports Extra, I chat with Dan Wallenberg, and here's that conversation. Dan Wallenberg, thanks for the time. I know as a PR spokesman for Ohio State Athletics, you tend to not want to be the story, but I'm glad you kind of made an exception to go down memory lane. So for those that don't know, your official title, Associate Athletic Director, Communications. You're doing what now? Is it rowing?
So I work with the rowing team.
Okay.
I work with the rowing team, wrestling, and men's soccer.
Okay, so you're always busy.
Correct.
And also you're getting close to 3 decades with Ohio State.
Yeah, this is my 29th year here at Ohio State.
We can make the math because 30 years ago, Atlanta 96, and you started in 98. So do the math there. You've been doing this for quite a bit, and you were already working in college athletics, right? When you did Atlanta.
Correct. I was at Western Kentucky University.
Okay.
I had spent 3 years there, and in that summer of '96, I had the opportunity to work the Olympics. Yeah.
Kind of a job of a lifetime. Anyone who gets to work the Olympics, it's like, wow, how'd you get to do that? So I guess I'll ask you that. How did you get kind of one of these dream jobs at Atlanta 96?
Great. I mean, not a great story, but I think the Olympic Committee had come out to our convention. I believe it was in Denver that year, the year before, and there's a sign-up table like anybody's interested in working for the Olympics. I'm like, yeah, sure, I'll sign up and see what happens. Never didn't really kind of forgot about it, and then started getting some communication from the Olympic Committee. Hey, we're interested. Would you still want to do it? And I was, of course. And so at first, I was going to do boxing. And then I got switched to wrestling, and then I ultimately got switched to field hockey, but it was just a great opportunity for sure.
What got you into the Olympics? I mean, it might be just really obvious. I mean, it was the first home games since the Los Angeles 1984 games, so obviously a huge opportunity. You're clearly into sports, but you also have a passion for the games. So what got you into it? For
sure. I mean, I think like many people that are sports minded, the Olympics is kind of the ultimate. It's something that involves your country where everybody's a fan. You're not I think similar to the men's hockey team last year. The whole world rallied, or the whole United States rallied around the men's and women's hockey teams. And so just having that opportunity to be working for the Olympics and supporting the efforts here, I think.
But a great opportunity.
Great opportunity to work at such an unbelievable event in the United States.
Yeah. So Atlanta 96, you sign up, they kind of assign you this sport. Had you known anything about field hockey at all before you took that position?
I had never been at a school or had seen field hockey. I didn't even know that there was men's field hockey. So I go there and I'm like, it's fine. It'll be great. It's a learning experience, something different. And it was a lot of fun.
What was your day-to-day like?
So Atlanta was difficult to get around during that time. It was so many venues and so many different places to be. But my dorm room was at Emory University. We were in a physician's dorm room, they called it. And we would get up in the morning and we would go to the cafeteria there at Emory, and then we would catch a bus to a train station, and then train to a transportation hub, and then we would get on a bus that would take you to your venue. So that was an ordeal in itself, just getting around traffic in Atlanta. Once we got to the venue, it was, there was practices, and so just getting media in touch with their athletes or the teams that they were there to cover, and that was our day to day, and it was all day long.
Yeah, it must be a wild, it's busy, long hours. I mean, what was your schedule like?
So one of the things I say is, relative to what people might associate with, is the NCAA men's basketball tournament. First and second rounds are the busiest and most difficult time for an SID that's hosting that thing, and I've hosted that a time or two. It is first thing in the morning to the last minute of the day. And we did that for 3 weeks straight, every day. So it is a grind, it is grueling. But when you're in it, you don't really think about it. It's just, you have what you have to do and where you need to be, and you just go through it, and before you know it, it's over. But it's long hours, but it was just a thrilling experience.
And journalists from all over the world, any interactions that kind of stick out to you even 30 years later?
Well, that's one of the things about working with international media is they all handle things differently than we're used to. We're used to the journalists and athletes, working together to tell their story for the fans, and sometimes it's a great relationship, and sometimes it's not. And in some parts of the world, the relationship is more of a friendship than it is a journalist athlete situation. So that was interesting to see. And then the Olympics have strict rules on how you conduct media, and how you have interviews, and where you conduct them. And
right, you can't just grab them off the field of play. There's the field of play, there's mixed zone, there's press conferences. Right. If you do anything other than that, it's no.
So we were in charge of monitoring that and making sure that it flowed perfectly, and there was no extra interaction other than what was required of the athletes. And the athletes and the media alike from other countries weren't used to that. They don't experience that. They are used to sitting down with each other and having a chat and having a good conversation and hanging out. And that was not the case at the Olympics. And it's more strict and structured. And so there's some difficult conversations you have to have with people who don't understand maybe your language or how we're doing things. And so there were some, not many, but there were some. It's just different, and it was just a learning experience, so a tremendous learning experience.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, because it's definitely eye-opening. It's very different from what you work with in the college athletics world, where maybe like a wrestling match, and you can grab someone right after they come off the mat. It's very regimented and strict. What was some of the fun that you had? Some of the fun stories you've had. We were kind of talking about before we started taping how we had the India-Pakistan men's field hockey game, which it's the equivalent really of Ohio State, Michigan on just a whole nother level.
So I was assigned to Morris Brown College. That's where we played most of the game. Well, all the games that I worked were at that university, and the small press box. Small venue, but that day it was just electric. It was just it was unbelievable, and I'm thinking this was odd because it's field hockey, it's men's field hockey, and I'd never seen it before. Before that week, and it was just unbelievable. And it was Pakistan, India had.
How big is the stadium, by the way?
I want to say it was 5,000 to 7,000.
Okay.
I could be wrong.
That's a very nice, intimate, but also loaded atmosphere.
One-sided, it was one-sided stadium. Everybody was one side.
Imagine if they played Ohio State, Michigan in a 5,000 to 7,000.
Very similar. And so so everyone working the event, there was a lot of tension on that day, just because we wanted it to run well, and we wanted everything to be perfect, as the Olympics does for every event. And I remember there was earlier in the day. It was I can't remember the exact time of the game, but it was later in the day. There was a scare because there was a box truck outside the stadium that was unaccounted for. And so we had to evacuate the stadium and make sure that it was appropriate. That truck was there for a reason, and they got that figured out. And then the two countries were tense, and so the press box was divided for one side and the other. And it was just a really tense, exciting day. And then the game went on, and it was it was a nil draw. And my job in the mix zone is the athletes walk off the field, and they have to walk through this particular area where athletes or where journalists can gather and get quick interviews before the main press conference and open locker rooms and that. So my job was to just kind of monitor that area.
Yeah, these are like 90-second barely. I mean, like 1 or 2 questions.
That's right. Just something real quick,
Flash
quick hitter, flash quote, get in, get by, get it, and go to the regular media, structured media for the rest of the day. Anyway, we had a request for one of the athletes from Pakistan who was, at the time, the best player in the world in field hockey. They called him the Maradona of hockey.
No kidding.
And as I came to learn later, he was the Michael Jordan. They compared it to something in the U.S. of field hockey. So I went up to him. He was chatting on the field with somebody, his friends, friends from their team. They're just chatting, and I just kind of went and tapped him on the shoulder and said, "Hey, I need you for the mix zone real quick." No problem, fine. So we walked to the area. He's doing another part of our job was to get interpreters so that the athletes can understand the media and the media can understand the athletes. So we had a Pakistani interpreter who I'd come to know and secured him for the interviews. And we're going on, and there's a bunch of fans in the stand just going crazy. And then I'm just thinking they're excited to see their hero being interviewed so close to them, And while this is going on, the interpreter's just dying laughing. He's just laughing and laughing. And the interview ends, and we get everybody squared away, and the interpreter said, "Hey, do you know what they were saying?" And I'm like, "No, of course I don't."
Right. You're not exactly brushed up on your Hindi.
No.
Yeah.
And he said they wanted to get your autograph. And they were still there. They were still carrying on.
This is before phones. You can't even take selfies. You don't even have a cell phone.
Exactly.
Like, an autograph is like the closest thing you can get
Absolutely.
to like immortality.
And I started, obviously I was like, "My autograph?" He goes, "Yeah, they watched you go up to their star hero and touch him on the shoulder and have a conversation with him and bring him over to this meeting." So he said, "You're a hero. You're a star in their eyes, and they want your autograph." And I'm like, "Wow, yeah." It was just, it was just wild. Not something you would expect, but it was entertaining.
It's almost the equivalent of like 30 years later, I'm asking you for an interview to kind of go down memory lane. So.
Yeah, exactly right. But it was fun, and I just remember just enjoying every day something different. And like I said, it was a struggle, but it was something I'll never forget.
It's kind of crazy that it's been 30 years. In fact, the day we're recording this, it actually marks 30 years to the day of the closing ceremony for the Atlanta 96 games. So it's quite fitting that we're talking about this on this particular day. First off, can you believe it's been 30 years?
I can't. I can't. I was so young in my career and just starting off, and to have that opportunity so young and so early in my career was just a great experience. But man, I can't remember. I can't believe it was 30 years ago.
Yeah, and not to age myself, I was 5, so I barely have memories of even watching the games. Like it was probably like me next to a TV screen and swimming was going on. But maybe for those that maybe don't remember, let's kind of set the table here for what the Atlanta 96 games were and the backdrop that it was up against. I mean, President Bill Clinton was in office. The 90s, everyone was kind of enjoying it. What was kind of your memory of where the country was 30 years ago?
Boy, that's a good question. I don't know that I remember like any political strife, or anything like that.
But the vibes were pretty good. I mean, it was the 90s.
It was the 90s. You had the Olympics in your home country. And again, doing what I do and having the opportunity to do what I do at that level, at that age and that stage of my career was just an unbelievable experience and opportunity. And I tried to take it all in, and you don't remember things until it's over, or you don't realize what you're doing sometimes until it's past. And I think that's accurate in that particular instance. It was just you had a day and you had to get the stuff done that needed to get done. But again, watching countries compete for their country or watching athletes compete for their country is different, and it's hard to explain why. But it's different than watching Ohio State, Michigan, or
Right.
or a Major League Baseball
Yeah,
game.
because that's a day. You're
That's
talking
a
about a 17-day period where like it's just a different vibe.
It's just a different vibe, and these guys, athletes train, daily, constantly, just for that particular 2-week period.
Yeah.
And one loss is devastating, and so it's survive in advance, and what it's hard to describe the feeling of patriotism that each athlete has for their country, and that's why they're doing it. They're not doing it for money. They're not doing it for they're doing it for their country, and that's to be a part of that is amazing, or was amazing.
There were so many memories that I think viewers recall back from Atlanta '96. Anything from Michael Johnson and his historic double. The U.S. women, just in general, were knocking it out of the park between obviously the Magnificent Seven. You have the USA women's soccer team, softball, basketball. They were really the stars of that. For you, I know you were working every day, but as someone who just loves sports, were there any memories, even if it was from field hockey that you were covering on a day-to-day basis, anything that sticks out to you competitive-wise?
So I just remember that, again, we were one of the sports that were every day throughout
You
the
had
event.
no time to really consume.
We really didn't have opportunities to go to other venues and see other things.
And there was no internet, so it wasn't like someone was like telling you, you're
Correct.
like, hey, did you just see like Michael Johnson just did this?
That's correct. But what we did have is we had a bank of TVs in like a kind of a common area in the stadium that when games were going on, and I really didn't have in-game responsibilities. I had post-game responsibilities. So it was nice. It was kind of cool to be able to watch everything that was going on all at once. And to just cheer on the USA and whatever they were doing. So I remember sitting there watching those things,
getting the world feed coming in,
getting the world feed in the CNN center where all the media was housed. They had all kinds of that stuff. So that was amazing to me to go and see that. But
yeah, the IBC is actually like one of my favorite places just because there's so many monitors
There's so much going
it's
on.
so different. Yeah.
It's so much going on, and it's all available to you. I think back at that time, you couldn't be at home and watch anything except what was being
on
broadcast
NBC. That's right.
So that was different. And I remember it's just like how this is really neat. This is kind of cool watching, be able to see everything you want to watch, and you follow it. But again, we were so entrenched in what we were doing. We really didn't. Like we would get home at night and there was nothing on, it was a 3-station, there wasn't much going on in the dorm room to catch up or whatever. And so he just kind of got ready for the next day.
Yeah. Those games also remembered for a dark day in Olympic history. July 27th, 96, pipe bomb explodes in Centennial Park. That happens to be on the same day as you were telling me before we started taping. You're one day off.
Yes, it was actually a half day off. We had a morning off. And so my roommate at the time, at the events, we're like, do we just hang out? Do we just get a half a day of relaxing?
Resting,
Yeah. Or do we like see what's going on, or see what we can see? And we decided to we're not gonna.
I think that was the right answer.
You can rest. You can rest later.
Yeah.
So we got on our routine of got on a bus, went to the train, went to the transportation center, and we went to Centennial Park. He may have went somewhere else also. I happened to go to Centennial Park. He may have, I can't remember him being with me. But anyway, just walked Centennial Park and, it was early in the morning. There wasn't a whole lot going on, but just to say that you got at least a chance to do that. And then I went to, like I was talking earlier, went to the CNN Center where all the media was held or housed as kind of a hub and got to see that and then went about our day. And then, of course, late that night is when the pipe bomb went off. So. Yeah. When the bombing happened, and that was surreal because it was the middle of the night. It was like 1 a.m., 1:30 I can't remember the exact time, but it was late at night when it happened, and we didn't have cell phones, and so we had a number in the dorm room that people could call us on, or we could call out, which we were never there. So, but anyways, the contact was a number, and at like 2 a.m, our phone started ringing, people checking like, hey, you okay? Just making sure. And we're like, what? We had no idea what was going on. And we had a radio in the room. And so we kind of found a news channel and kind of listened for almost the rest of the night, what was going on. Because we were concerned about the next day. Like, what do we do? Do we go in? Do we not go in? Or what's going on? So anyway, that was an experience for sure.
The competition continued, and it the whole games goes down as largely successful. You end up reprising your role a few years later when Salt Lake hosted the games, a little bit different. And actually, funny enough, next February, that'll mark 25 years. We might have to talk to you again. But really quickly, like to have worked both that and then the Winter Games, what was that like, especially the level of American pride? I mean, you got to remember Salt Lake 2002, that was right in the aftermath of 9/11.
Yeah. So, again, had an unbelievable opportunity in '02 to work the Olympics and was assigned the hockey venue. So I was able to work men's hockey.
Not a bad sport to have.
No, it was. I mean, I have far more stories about that. I was more prepared for it. I kind of knew a little bit more about what was expected, and we had a much bigger role with media at the men's hockey venue. We did men's and women's hockey, and we're working with Wayne Gretzky and Mario, and Lemieux and Joe Sakic, and all the Team USA, and being in their locker room, and their open locker room, and getting to know really getting to know the hockey teams on a really one-to-one level was just fantastic.
We talk about legacy as we wrap things up here. First off, how did those experiences, especially Atlanta '96, as you said, that was early on in your career in college athletics. How did that experience shape you in your career?
That's a great question, and it's had first of all, I need to thank Western Kentucky and Ohio State for giving me the opportunity to take time away from my real job to go work, these events. That was just phenomenal that occurred. But I remember Andy Geiger, our former athletics director, and I asked him, like, hey, I got this opportunity to go work the Olympics. And he said, you need to do it because you'll come back a better professional. And I've never forgotten that because it's so true. You just get better at learning about how different people operate in different environments and being able to suit their needs as best you can, take care of the athletes, make sure they have the best experience they can have, and having the media have the best experience they can have. So I think that's helped me. Like sometimes when you get frustrated, you're like, I just need to step back and because everybody's coming at you in a different space and from a different place. And so it doesn't really matter what my day is going like. It matters what I can do to make two sides have a great experience and then get an end result that's great for everybody.
Yeah, well said. One more question for you. Before I get into that, I mean, this conversation would have happened if I hadn't worn this polo. I clearly was not at the Atlanta '96 games. I picked this up on Facebook Marketplace. But clearly, I think even wearing this probably evoked a lot of memories for you. As we're getting closer now to the LA Olympics in 2028, and you look back at Atlanta '96, what do you hope is the legacy from Atlanta that maybe as we get ready for LA, we can kind of learn from?
I think that, again, I think you have people coming from all over the world. I think we saw it and to a certain extent in the World Cup. You have people coming from all over the world to experience the United States and support their teams. And if we can do as good a job as we did during the World Cup, I think it's going to be a great Olympics. I think it really is. People are coming, United States has its problems like everybody does, but it's a great place to be and it's a great thing to see. And we've learned that from the experiences of those that came for the World Cup.
Yeah. Well, it's exciting, and who knows? Maybe there's going to be another shirt that will come out, and then we'll talk about this again in another 20 or 30 years.
I look forward to it.
So that'll be a lot of fun. Dan Wallenberg, appreciate the time.
Sure,
thanks as
my
always.
pleasure.
So many great memories from the Atlanta 1996 games, from Muhammad Ali lighting the Olympic cauldron during the opening ceremony to so many gold medals in the pool, and also Michael Johnson lighting things up on the track with his historic gold medal double in the 200 and 400 meters. And then, of course, we had so many great memories thanks to the United States women's teams, from the Magnificent Seven in gymnastics to winning gold in softball, soccer, and basketball. And it's cool that Dan Wallenberg had basically a front row seat, maybe not to those specific memories. It was in the sport of men's field hockey, but still getting to play a role in the greatest show on earth. And of course, we're not too far away from the Olympics coming back to the United States.
Thanks for watching. For more NBC4, download the NBC4 streaming app. You'll get free 24/7 local programming streamed straight to your living room. Just search NBC4 Columbus on your Apple TV, Amazon Fire, Roku, or Samsung device.